Have you ever sat alone in your room, staring at the ceiling, asking yourself, does anyone even see me? Does anyone care? Let me tell you this, from the depths of my heart to yours, you are not forgotten. Not by your Lord, not by the one who created you, not by the one who knows what keeps you up at night. You matter more than you know, and today I want to remind you of a truth that can bring your heart back to life. People often look at you and assume they know your story. They see you show up, smile, nod, and play your part like everything's okay. But what they don't see is the heaviness behind your eyes, the way you wake up and push yourself through the day with a heart that's been breaking quietly. The way you hold back tears in public because you don't want to be seen as weak, and at night, when the world finally goes quiet, when no one's texting or calling, that's when your thoughts get loud. That's when the loneliness creeps in and you start asking questions you've never said out loud. Asterisk, does anyone see what I'm going through? Does anyone actually care? Asterisk, it's easy to feel invisible in a world that's moving too fast. People are busy, everyone's trying to survive, and in the chaos, you feel like your pain has no place. You want someone to stop, to notice, to ask if you're really okay, and mean it, but most days you just get, stay strong, or you're tough, you'll be fine, and you nod. Because it's easier than explaining what you don't even have the words for. But even when you're surrounded by people, you feel alone. You laugh at jokes. You reply to messages. You post something just so it looks like you're functioning. But deep down, there's this ache, this fear that you're slowly fading into the background and no one even sees it happening. But let me tell you something real, something deeper than surface-level comfort. You may not be seen by the world, but you are seen by the one who created it. Allah sees not just the outer you, not just the version you let people interact with. He sees what you hide. He sees the internal battles, the private heartbreaks, the way you hold yourself together when everything inside is falling apart. He sees the effort it takes to get out of bed when your spirit feels crushed. He sees the nights you cry quietly into your pillow because you don't want anyone to hear you break. That kind of pain, the pain no one else acknowledges, is not lost on him, and that should mean something. It should mean something that the King of the heavens and the earth knows your name, knows your voice, knows your pain. It should mean something that when no one texts back, he hears you before you even speak. When no one checks in, he's been watching over you the whole time. When your strength runs out, he knows exactly how much you've been carrying, and how long you've carried it. You don't need to post your struggle or explain yourself to gain validation. You don't need to wear your wounds publicly to be seen, because you are already fully, deeply, intimately known. There's no need to impress the world when your soul is already held by the most merciful. And that kind of knowing, there are moments when you give so much of yourself and wonder if it even matters. You stay up late helping someone, you lend your last bit of money to a friend in need, you smile through pain just to make others feel comfortable. You forgive when it's hard, you stay silent when you could lash out, and you pray constantly for people who don't even know the weight they've placed on your heart. But after a while, it starts to feel like no one notices. No one claps for you, no one sees the struggle behind your kindness or the cost behind your patience. It feels like you're investing all this energy into a world that only sees results, not effort, and when you don't get a thank you, when your good deeds are taken for granted, or worse, understood, you start to wonder if you're wasting your time. But the truth is, you're not doing it for the people. You're not doing it for the applause. You're doing it for something greater, for someone who never overlooks the small things, because even when the world doesn't reward you, Allah has already written it down. Every act of goodness, no matter how tiny or hidden, has been captured by angels who don't miss a single thing. That smile you gave the cashier when no one else noticed her mood, it's written. That moment you held your tongue when someone was rude, it's written. That little coin you gave in charity, the one you didn't even think twice about. That's written too. The good you do doesn't need to go viral for it to matter. It's already been recorded by the one whose records never lose data. Sometimes the hardest part isn't doing good, it's continuing to do it when it feels like nothing's changing. You try so hard to be better, to show up with integrity, to live with intention, but the world keeps moving as if you're invisible, and that makes you want to give up, to stop trying, to stop being kind, generous, patient, because it seems like no one cares. But you need to remember something powerful. Goodness is never wasted. Even if no one sees your struggle, even if your sacrifices are never acknowledged, even if you walk away feeling empty after pouring out love, you're not walking away unnoticed. Every time you choose the higher road, every time you choose to be sincere, even when no one's looking, you're building something eternal. You're shaping a legacy that doesn't need followers or fame. It's being counted one moment at a time by the one who will multiply it beyond anything you can imagine. You don't need to broadcast your good to make it real. You don't need someone's validation to make it valuable. Your reward doesn't come in likes or compliments. It comes in peace, in blessings, in divine favor. What you're doing might not be loud, but it's powerful, and that kind of impact. There's a kind of pain that only surfaces after you've prayed for something again and again and again, and nothing changes. You start to feel like your duas are floating in the air with no landing place. Like they're just words evaporating into silence. You wonder if you're doing something wrong. Maybe your faith isn't strong enough. Maybe you're asking for too much, or maybe you're just not meant to have it. And that doubt, it's quiet, but it eats at you. Because when you keep knocking on a door that never opens, it's hard not to question if anyone's even on the other side. You find yourself staring up at the ceiling, hands raised, whispering your hopes into a space that doesn't seem to whisper back. You start to think, asterisk, is Allah listening, or have I been forgotten? Asterisk, but here's the thing about dua. It's not about how loud you cry or how perfectly you phrase your words. It's about the act itself. The surrender, the reaching, the choice to hope in a world that keeps trying to make you give up. When you raise your hands, even if your voice shakes, even if all you can say is, Ya Allah, help me, that alone carries weight. That alone is an act of faith, and even if you don't see the result right away, even if you walk away from prayer with nothing physically in your hand, something inside you has shifted, something in the unseen has moved. Because not a single dua is wasted, not one. Sometimes Allah gives you exactly what you ask for, and it's clear. Other times He delays it, because the timing isn't right, or because something better is on its way. And then there are times He holds it back because what you're asking for isn't meant for you. But even then, He replaces it with something far more powerful: protection, peace, redirection, and the best part? You may never even realize what He saved you from, but He did, silently, lovingly, with more care than you could ever imagine. And it's easy to forget that even the greatest prophets had to wait. Even they cried. Even they wondered when relief would come. Look at Prophet Zachariah. He made dua for years for a child, and still he kept calling, not because he saw results, but because he trusted the one he was calling. That's what dua is. It's not a transaction, it's a relationship. It's a bridge between your brokenness and Allah's mercy, between your confusion and His wisdom, between your delay and His perfect timing. So when you raise your hands, even if your heart is tired, know that you're being heard. There is not a whisper, not a sigh, not a tear that goes unnoticed. Your duas don't vanish into the air, they rise. They are recorded, they are cherished. And even when you forget the words you said, they remain suspended in the realm of divine care, waiting for the moment Allah decides it's time to open the door you've been standing in front of. There are times when life hits so hard, you can't even recognize yourself anymore. You wake up and you're not sure who you are without the pain, without the disappointment, Without the weight you've been carrying for so long, it's almost become a part of you. And you start to wonder, what's the point of all this? Why me? Why now? You look at everyone else smiling, thriving, living like life is on their side, and here you are, doing your best just to keep breathing. It feels unfair. It feels like you've been handed a struggle that no one around you seems to understand. And the worst part, you start to believe that maybe there's something wrong with you for feeling this way. But what if I told you that your pain has purpose, that it's not a punishment, not a sign of weakness, but actually something far more meaningful? Because sometimes the things that feel like they're breaking you are actually building something in you that comfort never could: strength, patience, compassion. A deeper connection with Allah, things that can't be developed on easy days, things that require fire to forge. You don't realize it while you're in it, but there's a transformation happening within you. And that transformation isn't pretty. It's messy, raw, and incredibly lonely, but it's real, it's honest, and it's necessary. There's something incredibly powerful about someone who still turns to Allah when life has stripped them of everything else. That kind of faith, the kind that shows up when there's nothing left to cling to, is the kind that's rewarded beyond anything this world can offer. Look at the story of Prophet Ayyub. He lost everything: his health, his wealth, his family. He was left alone, broken, with nothing, but he never lost his connection to his Creator, and because of that, Allah restored him, not just what he lost, but more, because the trial wasn't meant to destroy him, it was meant to elevate him. And maybe that's what's happening to you. Maybe what feels like life tearing you apart is really just Allah positioning you for something greater. Maybe this pain you're in isn't the end of your story. Maybe it's the beginning of the version of you that was always meant to emerge. You think you've lost yourself, but maybe you're being redirected to who you truly are, underneath the pressure, underneath the expectations, underneath the noise. This isn't about just surviving the storm. It's about becoming the kind of person who understands their own strength because of it, who looks back one day and says, I didn't just go through it, I grew through it. Pain is a strange kind of teacher. It strips away illusions, it reveals what matters, and in its most unbearable moments it forces you to your knees, not out of weakness, but because that's where you find clarity, that's where you find Him. That's where healing begins. Loneliness has a way of creeping in even when you're surrounded by people. You could be in a room full of friends, smiling, laughing, talking, but deep inside there's a silence no one else hears. That kind of emptiness is hard to explain. You start to feel invisible, like your presence doesn't make a difference, like if you disappeared tomorrow, the world would just keep spinning untouched, and as that feeling grows, you begin to pull back. You stop reaching out. You stop sharing how you really feel, not because you don't want connection, but because you're tired of being met with half-hearted concern or shallow responses that don't really touch the depth of what you're carrying. It becomes easier to keep things to yourself, to build walls, to act like you're fine, but even in that quiet isolation, something sacred is happening. Just because people aren't there doesn't mean you're alone. Just because no one's checking on you doesn't mean you've been abandoned. There's a presence you can't see, but it sees you, watches over you, cares in ways no human ever could. That presence is Allah. And with Him are the angels, always near, always attentive, always recording every moment you thought went unnoticed. Every time you made hiccup in a whisper, every time you sat in silence holding back tears, every time you remembered Allah when your heart was heavy and your hands were empty, they were there. The angels surround those who remember their Lord. They cover those who seek forgiveness. They listen when you recite Quran in a barely audible tone in the middle of the night. That lonely dua you made under your breath in traffic, it was heard. That istighfar you whispered between meetings. It reached the heavens. You think you're alone, but you're not. You are seen, you are surrounded, you are protected in ways you can't even comprehend. And sometimes Allah removes people from your life not to punish you, but to clear the space. to draw you closer to him, to strip away the distractions so that you can hear him more clearly, so that your conversations are no longer diluted by noise, but filled with sincerity, that quiet corner in your room where you curl up and pour your heart out. That's a sacred space. That's where angels gather. That's where strength is built. That's where your soul learns to lean, not on people, but on the only one who never leaves. And yes, the world may not understand your silence. They may misinterpret your withdrawal, but the one who matters never misreads your heart. He knows the difference between isolation and intentional solitude, between depression and deep reflection, between being forgotten by people and being chosen by him for a moment of intimacy that this dunya can never offer. This unseen companionship isn't always loud or obvious, but it's always present, and the more you become aware of it, the less you crave superficial connection. Because you realize you've never truly been alone in the way you once thought. There's a certain weight that comes with watching everyone else move forward while you feel stuck. You scroll through your phone and see people celebrating milestones, traveling, falling in love, getting promoted, starting families. And you're just there, sitting in the same room, living the same routine, fighting the same battles, and it begins to feel like you missed something, like life started without you. You try to stay positive, you try to keep your head up, but deep down you can't help but ask, asterisk, what about me? When is it my turn? Asterisk, you smile through the frustration. You congratulate others sincerely, even when it stings, but it stings all the same, because you know how hard you've been trying, how much you've been praying, how much you've sacrificed, and still, it feels like you're behind. But being behind in the eyes of people doesn't mean you're behind in the eyes of Allah. There's no missed deadline when your life is being written by the one who created time. No lost opportunity when your story is being authored by the one who knows the unseen. You might feel delayed, but to Allah, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And sometimes the reason you haven't been pushed forward yet is because your heart isn't ready to carry what you're asking for. Because what you think is a delay is actually protection. What you think is being overlooked is actually divine preparation. You're not being denied. You're being refined, quietly, patiently, lovingly. And growth doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like crying yourself to sleep after another silent day. Sometimes it looks like praying Fajr with a shaky heart. Sometimes it looks like starting over again after another failed attempt. But in those hidden moments, that's where your real transformation is taking place. You're building something the world can't see yet. You're developing roots before you bloom. You're learning how to walk with purpose before the doors open. And when they finally do, you'll realize the wait wasn't wasted. It was sacred. It was necessary. It was proof that your journey wasn't meant to look like anyone else's. It was uniquely yours, handcrafted with wisdom you couldn't understand at the time. Everyone has a season. Everyone has a moment. Just because yours hasn't come yet doesn't mean it never will. Allah's delay is not his rejection, and your worth isn't defined by what you've achieved in this dunya. Your worth is rooted in who you become during the process, the way you remain kind even when you're exhausted, the way you stay grateful even when it hurts, the way you show up day after day in quiet obedience, even when no one sees the effort. That's what counts. That's what's building your future, not the posts, not the timelines, not the comparisons, but the unseen moments of resilience, the parts of your story only Allah knows. The moments that look like nothing to the world, but mean everything to him, so to the one listening. Lost, tired, wondering if it's even worth it anymore. Hear this, you are not forgotten, not by Allah. Not for a single second. He has been with you through it all. He brought you here for a reason, and he is not finished with you yet. Hold on. The author of your story is still writing, and his endings are always beautiful.